Well, hello and welcome to Nature Connects. Nature Connects is TNC in Massachusetts webinar series that connects you with scientists, experts, influencers, and our partners from New England and around the world. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Deb Markowitz, the State Director for TNC in Massachusetts and your host for the day. Here at the Nature Conservancy in Massachusetts, we are dedicated to creating a healthier world for all. We work locally and globally using innovative science and scalable, long-lasting solutions to tackle the most complex environmental challenges facing this warming planet. We know that what we do here in Massachusetts to protect nature will mean a better future for people as well as the planet. We have a really exciting program for you today. We're going to be speaking with Jorge Cardona and Juan Carlos Godoy about TNC's work in Guatemala. They'll talk about how TNC works in close collaboration with our local partners network to conserve Guatemala's last remaining forests and to restore degraded landscapes. This is achieved through the creation of innovative financial and governance mechanisms, improvements and creation of environmental regulations and legislation, and the promotion of sustainable land management models that have proven to be successful for biodiversity, conservation, climate risk reduction, and poverty alleviation. I think it's a great model for so much of the work that can be done around the world. Before we dive into today's program, I wanted to share a little bit about our guests. Juan Carlos Godoy Herrera is a born and raised Guatemalan. He's currently the director of Guatemala's country program for the Nature Conservancy. His work experience includes serving for more than 20 years as a professor of protected areas for Central America and as the director of the Center for Conservation Studies at the School of Biology of the University of San Carlos of Guatemala and the Tropical Agronomic Center of Research and Teaching in Costa Rica, both really well-respected institutions of higher learning. Juan Carlos has also served in 2 3-year terms as the Vice President for Central America of the World Commission of Protected Areas of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. He served as Guatemala's Deputy Minister of the Environment. His contributions helped develop important pieces of public policy, including the National Biodiversity Strategy, the Protected Areas Act regulation, the National Marine Coastal Resource Management Policy, and most recently, the enactment of Guatemala's Climate Change Act and the design and development of the Guatemalan Metropolitan Region Water Conservation Foundation and the National Water Alliance. We are so grateful that he chose to become part of the TNC family and to do his work with us. Jorge Cardona has been with the Nature Conservancy for 20 years. He currently acts as the Sustainable Lands Program Coordinator for Central America for the Nature Conservancy. Juan Carlos is going to tell you a bit more about his background during the presentation, but we are equally as grateful to have Jorge as part of our team in Guatemala and in Central America at large. As you think of questions for Jorge and Juan, please enter them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And I just want to thank you all again so much for joining us today. And let's dive in. It's to you, Jorge and Juan.
Thank you very much. Good day for everyone. Many thanks to the Massachusetts chapter, friends, and especially to its director for following us to put our beloved Guatemala in your wishes and commitment for the future. Guatemala is about maybe 3.5 times the Massachusetts size, but it's globally recognized as a mega biodiverse country. It's really small country, but very rich country related with biodiversity. Thank you for investing your time in this space that I am sure will open a period of collaboration between our small operating units and your chapter. I take this opportunity to thank our Latin American communication and develop team for their support and design and support this presentation. That you know, I am the new Guatemala Country Program Director, but involved with TNC for more than 20 years in protected areas, in biodiversity, and in some time like external affairs associate director here in Guatemala. Today, I accompany with Jorge. Jorge Cardona is 20 years old in TNC too, biologist, bird watcher, with a lot of experience working on biodiversity in tropical forests and in generative agriculture too, who is our current conservation director of Guatemala program, and who will present to you some photographs, some data, some priority strategies, and our iconic landscapes that we have in our work agenda. I hope that this presentation will align our passion and joint forces in the future. And thank you very much for your time, for your future interest in Guatemala, in our small program like we have. Jorge, the floor is yours.
I want to start that the word Guatemala comes from a Nahuatl term that means place of many trees. Can you hear me?
Yes.
That's what we have in Guatemala. We have many trees. We have a great array of biodiversity. We have a hot spot of biodiversity in the world. We have more than 16,000 species of plant and animals. And because of being between two oceans, between the North American, South American regions, because having a lot of altitudinal levels, that makes us, as Juan Carlos said, a mega diverse country. We have 14 different ecoregions represented here.
All right, we have some
okay.
technical difficulties. Let's see.
Yeah, okay, I'm back. And 60% of territory is covered by mountains. That, as I said, which provides a lot of niches for many different countries. We have a country of many volcanoes, 37 of them, 3 of them are active. And about birds, we have 734 species of birds. And according to National Audubon Society, we have more birds than Mexico, United States, and Canada combined. So that shows you how a very small country, and because of its geographic position, makes one of most diverse in the world. This area is full of opportunities like soil, climate, and culture, but also face a lot of challenges. Because of the ruggedness of the terrain, we are prone to landslides, and because of the ocean, we are exposed to hurricanes. And also because we are straddling on 3 tectonic plates, we are also exposed to earthquakes. And on top of poverty and extreme poverty, that makes a very vulnerable area. But we focus on opportunities, and along with all the richness of forests and biodiversity, Guatemala also offers an opportunity of being a carbon sink for the world. You know, even though Guatemala doesn't contribute too much to global warming, can contribute to carbon sequestration for being an excellent carbon sink. Next, please. I still don't see the next one.
I advanced it. Is this, it starts with a bread basket and water factory. Is that the correct slide? Is everyone in the audience seeing the correct slide? Maybe Jorge, you can just continue because it's on the proper slide, I believe.
We are, I'm wondering if Jorge's having a little bandwidth issues. So folks in the audience, just bear with us a little bit as we're figuring it out. And so Jorge, if you hear us, maybe you should take yourself off of video.
You know what? We just lost him for a moment. Maybe we could ask Juan a question while we wait for him to come back on.
Yeah. So Juan, well, I see Jorge is popping back on.
Yeah, I am really sorry. I am having internet difficulty, but I changed network, so I hope it doesn't happen anymore.
And so Jorge, why don't you take yourself off video, because maybe that will be helpful.
Okay.
And so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I did that. And so to continue on, Guatemala is also a cradle of many cultivated plants. For example, paleontological evidence show that the Maya culture used to cultivate cacao, avocado, pepper, strawberry, green beans, corn, and all that. And that shows that Guatemala possesses the original relatives of these species, and that puts in a good position of having the genetical information to develop species that would, or varieties that would be resistant to floods, to heavy winds, to diseases, and that give us a resource to keep the richness of agrobiodiversity we have, not for us only, but also for the world. Agriculture is a 1/4 of our GDP, and it's very important. According to our data, we export 60% of our agricultural produce, and also provides a lot of food for our local communities. Guatemala is also very important for the water production. We have, according to data, more water than we need, even though we have some dry areas where rain 31.5 inches, and some very wet areas where it rains 236 inches a year. So in a general balance, we produce a lot of water, which we share with our neighboring countries. And we have 38 watersheds that drainage for both oceans and also the Gulf of Mexico. So in terms of water, also Guatemala is very beneficial, not only for us, but also for neighboring countries and the world. Next, please. And because of this importance of water, is very key for us and for the entire world to protect the forest. And another reason for that is that the indigenous peoples, which is a high number of them, take care of the forest. We have 25 different ethnic groups in Guatemala. 22 of them are Mayan descendants. One of them is non-Maya descendants, come from South America, it's believed. The other one is the Garifuna in the Caribbean coast, and the last one is the Spanish descendants. This array of all these ethnic groups bring about a lot of traditional knowledge that is being used as solution of the problems we have, and also innovations for the challenges we face. 12% of the Guatemalan territory is owned or managed by these indigenous people. In that way, the communal lands are the strongholds of biodiversity, water, and history and culture, important for Guatemala and for the entire world. Remember that worldwide, 20% of the world's surface is owned or managed by indigenous peoples, and 80% of biodiversity is within those areas. That's why forests and people are very linked together here in Guatemala, and that's our approach, to work with both of them in order to get harmony between them. Next, please. About the Nature Conservancy, we started operations in Guatemala in 1988. So it's been 35 years already. And we always have worked in cooperation with the local partners, the government, communities, NGOs, academia. We develop these platforms of work through which we bring about innovating financial mechanisms, for example, and governance mechanisms. We need these two pieces in order for people to have the best arrangements to address the environmental opportunities and challenges, but also the financial resources in the long term for practicing or making best practices for the ecosystems. So we work in those two areas because we see ourselves as collaborators. We know that we ourselves cannot cope with all the challenges we have, not even making profit of our opportunities. So we collaborate with all the partners in the localities. And also we base our actions in science. One of the first steps we make in the locations is making the basic science to know where and what to do in the different territories. And that makes us more precise in what we want to accomplish. And also when they see our passion to our work and for our biodiversity, that provides us with leadership that inspire others in order to streamline the agendas and the efforts to protect biodiversity and bringing about prosperity for local communities. We know also that our local actions makes a difference in the localities, but also globally. We know that working in fixing carbon dioxide and protecting biodiversity has also a global impact. And also we leverage our results by working with platforms. We bring into the table resources from the government, from the academia, from the international cooperations, communities, and all. So that permits us to scale and to expand our efforts. And so we have much better results in protecting biodiversity. Next, please. Also in Guatemala, we set two important priority areas of work, which we call iconic landscapes. One of them is the Western Highlands. The Western Highlands is a inspiring area of about 2 million hectares in which around 5 million people live, around 11 indigenous Mayan descendants, and which, as I said, bring together traditional knowledge and practices that can help with the challenges each area has. As I mentioned, this is one of the most rugged areas with steep territory and also active volcanoes, which is beneficial and sometimes is a threat. So this array of people, forest, biodiversity, volcanic activity makes an inspiring area in which we work and in which we think that we can take off local biodiversity and also make communities thrive. And that's what we are working on. For example, the coffee we produce is produced here in most of it here in the Western Highlands, and many other products like peach, strawberries, as I mentioned. So that's a very important and priority area for us. The other one is the Maya forest. As you know, the Maya civilization is one of the best the world has seen, and Guatemala is the cradle of it. In the Maya forest, there are these already discovered ancient cities, but also ancient cities that are yet to be discovered, and surrounded by forest and fauna like seeing pyramids surrounded by monkeys, by toucans, by eagles, by deers, is a lifetime experience that we want to protect. But the other important thing of the Maya forest is the community forest concessions. This is a model can you hear me?
We can hear you now. We lost it when you were talking about it being a model.
Oh, light is going down.
Oh boy, your electricity is
Yeah, electricity is having problem, but I can hear you.
okay. Good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go along as far as you
Okay.
can, and then Juan can
okay.
take over if he needs to.
Okay. As I said, the forestry concession system is a world model in which communities manage the forest in a way that they produce products like mahogany and cedar, but also make great accomplishment of conservation. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you. I'll let you know.
Okay.
I'll give you
Okay.
a chat if we can't.
Okay, so I was saying that the forest concession is a model for the entire world. They manage around 500,000 hectares of forest, which is the best protected in the Maya forest. So that's why we see a lot of opportunities to expand this effort and to make it even better for both biodiversity and local communities. Next, please. Let me know when you can see the slide, please.
It's up now.
Okay, and I know, and we know that natural communities don't see boundaries. You know, boundaries were made by men, but jaguars and toucans and eagles go around and across boundaries, and that's the approach we need to address. We work knowing that we share ecosystems with our surrounding countries, and that's why we work together with them in order to make multinational efforts to protect the Maya forest, the Western Highlands, because we know, for example, we produce water for Belize and the coral reef. We produce water for the hydropower in Mexico, and we produce water for the Gulf of Mexico through River Usumacinta, important for fisheries, for example. Rio Usumacinta is the second most important river in the Gulf of Mexico, just behind Mississippi, and the seventh most important river of the world. And that river starts in Guatemala, so that's why we think we as country, we are a nature powerhouse that generates enormous ecosystem benefits far beyond our borders, and that's why we work also beyond borders. Next, please. Hello.
He's
Yes.
ready.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Okay. I want you to meet a couple that for us are nature champions. Don Julián and Doña Juliana is a Mam Maya couple that decided to adopt some practices that we presented to them through our local partner Fundaeco, which consists on a sustainable small livestock production. So this couple and many others are producing small livestock products as wool and meat in an enclosed system that doesn't permit that the animals go around the forest eating the natural regeneration. But also with the manure coming from these animals, they make fertilizer to produce high quality potato. So they are having two activities, agriculture and livestock, in a regenerative agriculture that we are promoting, and having good incomes, so they have a better living. That's one of the many examples we have in the Western Highlands, which we would like to expand and and the scale. And in that way, that help us to protect the important ecosystem and ecosystem services. And those are examples that we are following up, but also showing to the Ministry of Agriculture, for example, so they know where and how to invest the government efforts in order to scale and expand our efforts. Next, please.
It's up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. As an organization, also we have the system thinking approach. We know that having this approach, we can benefit more people like Doña Juliana and Don Julian, and this also permit us to have systemic changes, and that can lead us to have more harmonious and equitable and inclusive relationship between human and nature. And also, as I said, that provides us the benefit or scaling our efforts rather than working out of a system thinking approach. So I know, and we know that having this approach as well has to go through building opportunities that the country offer. As I said, we are full of opportunities and challenges, but we are more focusing on the opportunities that address through system thinking can bring about much better results. And also, if the institutional agendas are aligned in a system thinking led by TNC locally and nationally, that will help us to have better accomplishments in biodiversity conservation and livelihood improvement, but also complying to our commitments in biological and other conventions around the world, so we can do our contribution in those matters as well. And also working in system thinking provide us the resources to make those financial mechanisms that I was telling you about, of which we have several experiences like a nature dev swap we are finishing now, by which we benefited many communities in the world, and we reestablished thousands of hectares, and we supported the conservation of protected areas. And we are in the effort of creating more financial mechanisms in order to expand those results as well. And most of all, we want to strengthen human capacities in order to make them self-sufficient and less dependent of other factors than their capabilities and the ecosystems around them. Next, please. And let me know when you have it.
It's ready to go. Thank you.
Okay. So we came to understand that right now we are in a threshold generational decision-making moment. It depends on our decisions what will bring the future for us. That's why we are working with people, making them aware of the urgency of making the right decisions, but also showing them opportunities, because we think we will have a bright new future for Guatemala. In working in our priority areas, we know that we are investing our best resources in the most impacting, in the most area that can provide impact for biodiversity and people, because what we want, what we know is that if nature thrives, so will people. So these two factors cannot be separated, but it has to be together. But talking about being together, we understand that together organizations, governments, corporations, academia, and of course you can ensure that Guatemala's nature and people are aligned to the strategy of protecting biodiversity and improving people's livelihoods. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Jorge, for talking this tour of our program, our country. Sorry for the electricity, the technical problems, but right now is the electricity flow irregular here in Guatemala. Now it's time to open the space for questions or comments or suggestions. Please, we expect for you.
I apologize. I have a visitor from Afghanistan, and she doesn't understand I'm on a Zoom call. So, Liz, would you start the questions for me, please?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, we do have your questions coming in. Sarah O'Neill asks, is 12% of the forest under sustainable management enough to support biodiversity? Are there efforts to increase the amount of land that falls under these efforts? And is there multi-country cooperation?
Yeah. First of all, the protected areas Guatemala system has around the 30% of the country in different categories of management: national parks, regional parks, private reserves, community lands, reserves, etc. But this is important in parallel way to work in agriculture, in cattle ranching, for improve the forest cover in the agriculture land. It's very, very important for us to work in parallel ways inside and around the protected areas, but increase our agriculture and cattle ranching strategies in the rural areas in general. Yeah, is inside of our agenda and need to scale our work with the biggest corporations related with agriculture and cattle ranching. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I'll turn it back to you, Deb, if you're back.
Yeah, I am back. Thank you. Let me know if I had to move to a different room. My apologies, everyone. So I just want to start by recognizing, Jorge, I just loved your description of the magic of the Mayan forest, and also how it's a world model of community management of conserved land. Understanding both that the forest is necessary for livelihoods, but it's also valuable for the ecosystem benefits it provides far beyond the borders of the forest. And it's something I think we could learn from here in Massachusetts. And so I actually am curious, Juan and Jorge, how are you engaging with the rest of TNC about this important national, international global model, the systems thinking approach, which makes such great sense for the Mayan forest, but also for the rest of us?
Jorge, you are connected, or?
We lost Jorge for a moment, so I'll let you know when he's back on. Thank you.
Okay. The forest community concessions is based on national lands. The national government put in the hands of the communities, organizations, some piece of land, piece of forest for work, and really it's an international model because it's less deforestation inside of the forest community concessions like the national parks. The protected areas has some deforestation rates, but inside of the community forest concession, no. It's wonderful to see the community work inside of the forest concessions. Is not for wood, is related with tourist activities too, and no wood products too, like gum or spicy or other kind of non-wood products. And yes, we spent more than 10 to 15 years working in protected areas in the Maya forest, but our relationship with the forest community concessions is very new. We have only 2 years working with them, and we are very excited about our relationship with ACOFOP, that is the Association of the Community Forest Concession. Jorge, welcome. Maybe you give us more details about the forest concessions.
Okay, I'm sorry. This both electricity and internet is failing right now in my house. I am so sorry. So the concession is a model that is proved to be successful. It's been in place for 25 years, and it has a lot of world recognition and all that. But the most important thing is that have been the means by which many communities have had their dignified livelihood. They harvest hardwoods from the forest like mahogany and cedar, and they also make some products out of it and export it to some nations in the world. And another thing is that through that model, those areas which as a unit is huge, 500,000 hectares, is the best preserved in the area. Sometimes better than the national parks that are protected by the government. So it proves that community governance sometimes is the best way to protect forests and making livelihood of it. So that's the best example we can show to the world about that.
That's really wonderful. And, you know, there are some other examples in TNC of working with indigenous populations and doing a conservation project, and then having the land be given back to the tribes that originally had been managing it for generations. There's a question from Susanna Place. Can you say more about the government's commitment to environmental sustainability? For example, has the government's financial commitment increased in recent years? Are highly qualified environmental professionals going into government-related service?
Yeah, and it's very important questions, and it's too complex to understand the situation. But the Guatemala government is a weak it's a weak government, and with the budget and try to prioritize the budget on education or in infrastructure or in security activities, etc. And the environment and the protected areas is really with weak budget. Really is don't increase, maybe from 10 to 12 years is the same budget for the protected area system, and a little increase in the environmental minister for some activities. But it's maybe the half part of the budget for the environment here in Guatemala come from the international cooperation agencies like USAID or the UK DEFRA agency, or from the German government, etc., etc. We, like TNC, we have the presidents of the steering committee of the debt swap for nature between Guatemala and the US, and we put around 2 to 3 US million by year through our partners, our local partners. But is not really good the compromise of the Guatemala government in the environmental issues.
Thank you. That's really helpful. There was a few things in the chat. There's a few folks. Nila de Zoisa said, excellent talk. Thank you. Julia Logan also thanked you for the magnificent introduction to Guatemala. We had a question from John Aram. How does the difficult political situation in Guatemala impact your programs? And you spoke to that a little bit just now. I know there's a lot of curiosity about how, as a practical matter, TNC has been so successful in getting things done despite the fact that the government is so weak, as you just described.
Yeah, thank you. We have very close relationship with the local partners, with the communities and with the local NGOs and with the local authorities too. And really the biggest political bad situation in Guatemala has some impact in our work, but really is not enough. Maybe at the field last year was COVID, the most important issue related with our work. In some areas that we know is the narco traffic activities related with the army, related with the other kind of problems at the field. But Guatemala is not the wonderful land. Really work in peace and with happy relations with our local partners.
There was a
can I add? I think, as Juan Carlos said, there are good things and bad things. For example, right now the current president is very supportive with the forest concessions, but in other terms, the government also supports mining. So it's a situation in which we need to navigate into areas of opportunity and wait for better times in other areas in which those opportunities are not open yet.
That's great. Lauren Schwartz has asked, are there collaborations with neighboring countries such as Belize on the overall management of the Mayan forest? And also, is there a continuing problem with poaching plants and animals? And is this threat being dealt with?
Juan Carlos?
Really, the relationship between between our local partners in the Belize area or in Guatemala or in the border between Guatemala and Belize are very good. And the idea is to improve our work with the Belize program, and mainly based on the water relationship between the watersheds that beginning in Guatemala and the Selva Maya part of Guatemala and go through the Belize territory to the Mesoamerican Barrier Reef. Yeah, we need to improve our relationship between our two programs inside of TNC, but to try to support the relationship between local partners that work in the very close territory in the Maya forest between Belize and Guatemala.
Thank you. There was also a question about your safety and the safety of local people who are working on conservation. This person said that she keeps reading about the number of environmentalists being killed each year, and how safe is it for you all and others to be doing this important work?
Jorge. Oh, maybe it's freezing, Jorge. We are working in very secure areas, not only in the Western Highlands, but in the case of Maya Forest too. And really, we don't work in insecure areas. But for me, the best important tip is to work very close with the local communities. The community governance and the community people is our most important secure belt in the case of working on the field.
There's also a couple of questions about the indigenous population. Charlotte Metcalf asked, how large is an average indigenous family in Guatemala? And Denny Gallaudet asked, what are the drivers of the current famine among the indigenous population? And is there sufficient arable land to feed people?
Guatemala has around 17 million people right now, maybe 5 times that Massachusetts. And the statistics say that the indigenous people is around 65%. But this is maybe the cultural answers. But for genetic, is around 95-97% of the Maya people here in Guatemala. In the Western Highland that we work in the Mexico border, live more than 6 million indigenous people with 14 languages and maybe the most productive land close to the Pacific coast is in the agroforest and agro products for export, like sugar cane or oil palm or other kind of these products. And the indigenous people are in the hills, at the mountains, and in some cases with a very nice volcanic soil, but in other cases for the very, very bad soils and like rocks, and it's very difficult to secure the food production for a lot of indigenous families. For instance, the Maya forest area, the north part of Guatemala, border with Belize and Mexico, is karst, is not good land for agriculture. Is a good land for forest and good land for water and good land for biodiversity, but it's not good for agriculture. And yes, a lot of maybe millions indigenous people in Guatemala don't have access to good land for food production.
Thank you for that very thorough response. On this idea of kind of forest concessions, there's a question: is there an opportunity to expand forest concessions in the Western Highland Mountains? And what might be the mechanisms through which TNC and its partners could help protect the remaining forest and regenerate some of the degraded areas?
Good question, Jorge.
Yeah.
Maybe you catch this.
Okay, transferring the model of okay, thank you. Transferring the model of forest concessions to the Western Highlands could be a bit difficult because the land tenure is so different. In the Western Highlands, we have micro plots of properties that doesn't work very well for a concession. For example, in Petén, where we have the forest concessions, it's all public area. The terrain belongs to the state, and the state concessioned these areas to the communities. That is not possible in the Western Highlands right now. Probably in the future, we can find some mechanisms, as we have found some in the South Coast, in which a mangrove forest was concessioned to one community, but that would seem really difficult these days. What was the other part of the question?
The other part of the question was, it's about what TNC can do to help advance these concessions, or to protect the remaining forests, or to help regenerate forest that has been degraded.
Okay, we are working hard on that. For that, we use a financial mechanism that is in place from the government, which are forest incentives, in which people or organizations like TNC plant new forests with communities, and the government pays for its maintenance for the next 6 years. So people get money in their hands to protect the forest, to make profits of it, and also to invigorate local economies, and the forest comes back on degraded areas. That's a very successful mechanism that we are using in order to bring back forests that we have lost already.
So that leads into another question. One of the participants said that noted that Belize just participated in a huge land purchase to protect critical habitat. Are there similar opportunities to protect land in Guatemala through large acquisitions?
I will leave it to Juan Carlos.
TNC pay for, I don't remember the number exactly, but around 43,000 hectares in the Lacandon National Park. Maybe 15 years ago, we put $2 million for pay for the land, and right now is the core of the Sierra Lacandon National Park. But right now, maybe in the Maya Mountains, between the border from Belize to Guatemala, is maybe one possibility to catch some lands, and very important for biodiversity and for our relationship between Belize and Guatemala. Yeah, we put some lands in the hands of the biggest Guatemalan NGOs, Fundaeco and Defensores de la Naturaleza. We pay 15 years ago, maybe we pay for 7 to 11 piece of lands here in Guatemala, in the Sierra de las Minas bioreserve, or in the Lacandon National Park. Yeah, it's possible, but we need to improve our fundraising and our projects around the try to put more lands in protection.
That's really great. That's helpful. Just a couple of quick questions and then we'll begin to wrap up. Does Nature Conservancy promote passive ecotourism, which is like naturalist-led programs in Guatemala? And then also, what about organic agriculture? Is that something where there's, a good value add in some of the, projects that we're working on with communities?
Jorge.
Okay, yes, indeed, we are working in low impact tourism in the Maya Biosphere Reserve with local communities. There are many attractions in the Maya forest as like archaeological sites, but we are thinking in other ways to diversify these services, like for example a bike circuit around the Maya forest in the 3 countries, or bringing tourists to accompany rangers to do patrolling in a safe way, for example, or sharing with visitors actions of harvesting shate foliages into the forest and some others. So there is a lot of opportunities to diversify it and keeping low impact. So we are working in that, and I keep on forgetting the second part of the question. Can you tell me that, please?
But I will try to say this is very important for us, the ecotourism activities, because are related with women. And a lot of men's work in wood or in other kind of activities related with the forest. But for us, it's very, very important to support and strengthen the woman activities, the woman capacities for organize some economic issues. And the ecotourism is one of them. It may be the most important for try to support a lot of women's and inside of the communities in my efforts. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that. As you know, as we lift communities, we do know that livelihoods, you know, for women have a disproportionate impact in the well-being of families, and that ecotourism is really part of it. We did get a question about whether or not there are volunteer opportunities there, but I think we've really come to the end of our time, and I'm wondering, Juan, if you've got any last messages or requests from the audience, and then I'll wrap us up. Or Jorge, either one of you, any final words?
Okay, no, it was a pleasure showing our passion and what we do, and all the successes and challenges we have, and we hope we can meet soon and showing firsthand what we have. And also thank you for the time and the interest you showed in our work in Guatemala.
Yeah, and please, we make the most warm invitation to visit our beautiful country, which I am sure will impact you for its beauty and diversity, for natural and cultural heritage that we possess, and this country is in the top list of the vulnerability country around the world, and we need your support and your suggestions and recommendations for improve and scale our work here in Guatemala. And thank you very much for your time and for this space, for this webinar. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you both. Really exciting to learn about your work in Guatemala. It's such important work, not just for the region, but for the world, and you're real models. So I just want to personally thank you for what you do every day for us. And I want to thank all of you out there for joining us today. We really appreciate your support of the Nature Conservancy. It is your support that makes all of this work possible. We're going to be sending everyone a follow-up email over the coming days with links to the resources we talked about and a recording of the webinar. And if you are enjoying this webinar, these webinars, and think you know somebody who has an interest in Guatemala, for example, feel free to forward the webinar, forward the video, share it with your friends. You can also follow us on social media. It's at conserve_MA on Facebook and Instagram. And it's a way you can keep up with our work and get updates on other virtual opportunities to connect with us. And as always, you can see our upcoming webinars and sign up at nature.org/MA webinars. And you can join us December 9th for a special update on TNC's work in Mexico. So again, I want to thank you all for joining us, and a special thanks to Juan and Jorge. Thanks for being with us today and making us a little warmer, knowing what great work is happening down in Guatemala. So thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody.